football fans, viewers. Welcome to the post-game live stream with me and George, my foundation, my my greatest support, George.
Good morning.
How you doing? It's good to see
I'm all
you.
right.
Well, it's really morning for me, as you know. And most listeners should know that it's I have to get up really very early for this stream. But I enjoy it, I love it. George, yesterday with Crystal Palace, I don't know how surprised you are, but I was not. I mean, the details of the game, of course, I couldn't predict. But from the last stream you were in, you kind of left early, but I predicted a 1-1. I didn't think Arsenal was capable of scoring more than one goal. I predicted a draw. Then I did this thing with Ehab. I stuck to my guns. Ehab thought that there'd be a 2-1 victory to Crystal Palace or a draw. So Uncensored Arsenal has been consistent in our expectations. But a lot of people seem surprised. Why are they? You tell me.
We've been over this before. It's the desire not to accept that we're crap.
Oh, thank you for being honest.
Blame them. No, you can't. It's all right laughing. You can't blame them. Nobody wants to accept that we're at best a mid-table team and play crap football. We can see it every single game. It plays out in front of our very eyes. And still people refuse to accept it. Oh, we'll get better. He's sorted the defence out. Next thing you know, he'll sort the attack out. When he gets his own players in, when the players have settled in, there's one excuse after another, and it's all for the same reason. We want hope. We want to believe that we'll get better. We don't want to accept this. It's difficult for Arsenal Football Club to be seen as a bog standard mid-table team, which statistically we are. It's proven over the last 3 years, especially the last 2 years since Arteta came in, that's exactly where we are. But the reason people don't want to accept it is they want hope. Nobody wants to accept mediocrity. They want to see a future. I can't see a future, and that's the problem, that some of us look and see a bleak future and accept that it's bleak now and there's no improvements coming, but most people do not want to accept that. And why should they want to accept it? Why would you want to accept it? You'd look for any reason not to accept it. It's like people living in a marriage when it goes all wrong and it's crap and you're arguing all the time. Why don't you leave her? Why don't you leave him? Oh, well, there's the kids, there's the mortgage, there's this, there's that. There's always an excuse, and it'll get better. It'll get better. I'll behave better. She'll behave better. You always look to be positive.
Why are you reminding me of something that I'm familiar? I want to forget. George, I wanted to suggest to you, and this is in the topic. We convince ourselves that fourth or aiming for top four was not good enough. Winning the occasional trophy was not good enough. Being the Dortmund, I like to use an analogy. Being the Dortmund to Chelsea and Manchester City was not good enough. And therefore, we hounded out our greatest ever manager. There was hope before. Not everybody is not everybody, but most everybody is longing for the great football that we played. How can a poor Crystal Palace under a manager who's been only there 2 months versus a manager who's been at Arsenal for 22 months be outplayed, at least goal-wise, attacking-wise? We don't seem to understand and comprehend that what we had 4 years ago was as good as it was gonna get. Am I wrong or right?
No, it was. Looking back now, it was the land of milk and honey, wasn't it?
I want to go to heaven.
Honestly, I tweeted at the time that we would look back on Wenger's last 2 years, the last year of which
the last 2 years, George, the worst years. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, the worst years, and the last one in particular, where the players had given up, the management had given up, the fans had given up. They were flying. Everything was against him, and it was his worst ever season. And I said at the time we would look back at that season and yearn for that type of football, yearn to be that bad. Everybody, honestly, nobody was having it. They're all going, no, we'll improve. And we didn't. And I predicted we wouldn't. And here we are. We haven't. But there's nothing we can do about that now, unfortunately. We just have to accept that we shot ourselves in the foot repeatedly.
Well, you know what the problem is, George? This is what is in the topic. This is what is underlying the topic. Actually, the problem is the Cronkies decided that they didn't need Wenger anymore. From the minute Josh came in as a director 2 years before Wenger left, we could see the writing on the wall. We were desperately arguing for them to continue to renew Wenger's contract, but you could see the writing on the wall. They decided that this was not good enough, and that is essentially the policy. They brought in, George, let me just finish. They brought in Arteta to do a job that Emery could not do, to get rid of Wenger players. This is what he was brought in to do, so he got rid of Ozil because he was costing too much. They didn't renew Ramsey. Can you imagine that? Ramsey left on a free. We could have used him yesterday. Where was that box-to-box midfielder we needed? George, this is essentially the underlying problem. Wrong or right?
Right in some ways, but not entirely right.
Thank you for that.
Let's be honest, Aaron Ramsey's not kicked a ball very often since he left.
But at least he got Juventus a year.
And to say we could have used him yesterday, yes, we could. If he had been fit, chances are he wouldn't have been fit. Correct. So that's not that. I'm not having that as a major mistake. Mr. Ozil is an absolute disaster, travesty. However, that was the way it's going. But going back further than that,
yes,
the problem was Wenger's last 2 years. When he signed his last contract, he gave up control of certain aspects of the club.
Mm-hmm.
And I can understand why he did it. He didn't want to leave the club completely bereft of everybody that run everything, which was him. So he allowed other people to take responsibilities that he had shouldered for 20 years. And that was part of the transition to life without him, because he knew he couldn't go on forever.
Correct.
I think he accepted that. So he let, and they came in. Some of the executives took more control. Some of the scouts took more control. Stats DNA took more control of buying. all the things that he had total control of, he gave up. And from that moment on, we went downhill. And he was still in charge, but he wasn't in charge to the degree he was before. So that was a mistake, obviously, but a mistake that you can understand them making, because the club didn't want to be completely reliant on him, and he didn't want the club to be completely reliant on him. I mean, it was his legacy. It was the love of his life. He wanted to leave us in a position, so he wanted people to be able to do what he had been doing. He probably realized that no other manager could do everything like he had, so he had to let some of the power go. He did let some of the power go, but unfortunately, the people who replaced him couldn't do as good a job as him. Not overall, in their small, specific roles, they were not as good as he had been doing the whole lot. But that's understandable. I accept that. You've got to have a system where you're not 100% reliant on a man who's coming up for his 70th birthday. However, they fucked it up. They fucked it up. And that was where the problem started. And then they compounded it by deflecting and blaming him for their fuck-ups. They were getting things wrong. They were buying the wrong players. They lost control. And they blamed Arsene Wenger when it was them that had taken over those duties.
Right.
I mean, he was carrying on doing his bit, coaching. No visible change to the way we played.
Right.
And that was it. And we've got,
but you know, George. But you know, George, I think there's something more fundamental. I agree with you on that entirely. And you know, by the way, I will say that Aaron Ramsey only have a year at Juventus, and I'm sure he can't. He couldn't have managed Crystal Palace yesterday. I'm not saying, but certainly Mesut Ozil could have played a role. We hounded him out. We said he was lazy and all that good stuff. While he's doing well at Fener, you know, not the Mesut Ozil of old, but Mesut Ozil can do things in his old age that Smith Rowe can't even conceive of. George, just George, let me finish. Somebody said yesterday that in 5 games between him and Odegaard have put through 3 through balls. And as Ehab says, Smith Rowe needs to have a mentor to teach him how to play this game. It's simple. Maybe you want to comment on that before I ask the next question.
It's 8 games, not 5 games, but
yes,
yeah, you know, you can see
3 through balls and come tight, George.
In 8 games.
3. Mesut Ozil can do that in his dreams. Sees it and plays it. This is madness.
Right. Well, and Odegaard, I mean, he had to.
God, George, it was horrible yesterday. Go ahead, my friend.
Yeah, he was horrible, but he was playing. He's not a centre midfielder.
Exactly.
But he's been played there. Whose fault's that? His? Oh. And it's the same as, if you remember, that's where Mesut Ozil was basically playing the last 10 games of his Arsenal career under Arteta. He was having to drop back deep all the time. Mm-hmm. And he was criticised for his lack of assists and goals because and it's all right for these others, Ozil and Smith Rowe, because that's an excuse now. It was no excuse for Ozil, which is madness, because Ozil playing in that deep lying position was playing well. He was playing well. He wasn't out of his depth like Odegaard and Smith Rowe. But anyway, we haven't got Mesut Ozil. He's gone.
Yes.
And we have got Smith Rowe and Odegaard, who they're a long way off. I mean, people compare, I mean, God bless his cotton socks. Our good friend, I'm not even going to mention his name, but told me that Smith Rowe was as good as, or was it Saka? One of them was as good as Robert Perez. I mean,
oh God.
when you get this level of belief in young players, and again, I understand, we want to believe Saka's an absolute world-class star, whereas in fact he's just a good prospect still.
Right. George.
And Smith Rowe's the same. We want to believe that he'll develop into something resembling what Mesut Ozil was at his very worst, playing out of position with a load of crap around him. We want to believe that, but there's no signs that it's going to happen because the system won't allow him to develop.
Yes.
He needs nourishing. He's not getting nourishing. He's getting starved. I mean, people blaming the players all the time. And you see it all the time. Pepe had a bad game. Partey had a bad game. Odegaard had a bad game. Smith Rowe had a bad game. They're all having a bad game at the same time. Fucking hell, what does that tell you? You know, they're all good players. But if they're all playing bad at the same time, it's because the system's making them play bad.
Well,
And
George,
Arteta,
I wanted to come to this. Since we started broadly, and by the way, George, I really need to speak about this for a minute before we come to some particulars about the game. I want you to comment, George, about the expectations of fans, because they are already now the big accounts that said fourth was not good enough. The individuals, the ones who are not profiting because they have big accounts that are paying them money, they're now saying that it's Arteta out. Just like they said Emery out.
just like they said Wenger out.
Just like they said, you took the words from my mouth. So what do they? What don't you see that there's a problem with our expectations? The fans' expectations, George. You said that we want hope.
Before we go,
is there a problem with our expectations, and we are following people who are setting unrealistic expectations? Perhaps you want to. I want to hear what you think about that, George.
If it was that simple, I would agree with you. We're not following. We're not following. The majority of the fan base don't follow. They're led. Right? There's a difference between being following and being led. Correct. They're being led by these big accounts. And I predicted months ago, that they would stick with Arteta until they saw the herd turning. Like fucking something off The Walking Dead where they all hear a noise and then all the herd turn around and Arteta, right? We'll have him. And now they can smell it. They can smell blood in the air. And they're not going to miss out on the opportunity of being one of the leaders, right? Because people are not going to follow them unless they say what they want to hear.
Yes.
So they'll lead from changing. They'll all do it. They'll all. And I saw it yesterday. People that have constantly been telling me, "Oh, trust Arteta," criticizing his selections, criticizing his tactics, and I just keep tweeting. Oh, turn against it. You're questioning him now. I wasn't allowed to question him.
Right.
For 2 years, I've been told not to question him, not to say how bad things are. But all of a sudden, we're all moving in this direction now, and you better get prepared to be led by these. And the last of them will be the likes of Lee Grove, who's hung his hat on Arteta. The poor bastard must wake up in the morning and think, for fuck's sake.
How am I going to talk myself out of this? Because I spent 10 years building my career and Wenger out.
It's 3 years down the line now. Even they're struggling to blame Wenger for this.
Right.
They got 3 years out of Wenger, didn't they? It was Wenger's players. I mean, you look at the players now, and they're all either Arteta's brought them in, or he's renewed the contracts of them. They're all his players now, all of them, and they're all playing crap.
And George, $250 million of signings since he came. They'll add Pepe to that just before. But I was thinking last night, where's Murray? Where's the fellow from Southampton, the one that was supposed to be a fullback? They weren't even on the bench. This was his immediate signings right in January when he came. It's such a great waste of money in this time. I don't know if people understand that we are in a very difficult economic environment, but hey, the money will flow.
The thing is with those signings, you can either say they were mistakes and a waste of money, or they were an investment in PR. By buying mediocre players, what you're doing is you're saying, even these players were worse. The players I'm replacing were worse than these. Right? That's how bad they were. Look what Wenger's left us. We've had to replace these players because they were so bad with fairly crap players for an upgrade. That's not my fault. That's not the club's fault. So it's a good investment in PR. You buy a shit player and say he's an improvement and an upgrade, then who are you blaming? You're blaming the guy before.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? Because
yeah. you know, it's
even his
yeah.
crap players an upgrade. And
Well,
that's how I think some of the thinking was. They've got to make it look like the bad players, the good players that we had were worse than the mediocre players that we replaced them with. And
yeah, I know how that story. They'll frequently refer to Kolasinac and Mustafi.
yeah, I mean Kolasinac actually had,
but
under Emery.
But they came sixth. They took us to the European League final. Go ahead, George. Sorry, I'm interrupting you.
Kolasinac had better figures, better numbers under Emery than KT has under Arteta.
Oh gosh, George. You know, KT, God bless his soul.
I mean, look, he was getting stick last night for constantly passing backwards.
Right.
And I've given him stick in the past for constantly spamming the ball in with no purpose from the sides.
I thought he was giving instructions.
Whatever it is he's doing,
yes,
he's being told to do it. They all are. This is the point I want to make, that you're criticising the players for doing what they're told to do. Now, if it doesn't work, they get the blame. You know.
Yeah. I noticed, George. I mean, on that score, that he hardly put in a cross, and he was trying to run some combinations on the left hand side, especially when not before Martinelli, when Martinelli came on, but just before. But of course, people remember the shot he crashed on the bar in the 90-something minute.
I was unlucky.
Yeah, it was unlucky there. But you know, George, the game itself. Let's remember this. Crystal Palace I want to say very, but it's a mediocre side. But the era has made them harder to beat. I mean, the stat says 46% possession by them. So we had 54% possession. What they were better at was in the duels. And in absorbing whatever we were trying to do. Of course, in the end, what they did, sit back, try to hold on to what they have, but they didn't have any player that they couldn't hold possession of the ball, and eventually they paid the price. But they're a mediocre team, George, and they made us for long spells look very ordinary. Who do you put this down on?
Shotter. Look, imagine
yes,
that you're a manager and your best option, a centre forward, is Christian Benteke.
Exactly. Well,
right. Your other striker is Ayew. Your midfield is MacArthur and
Mihajlovic, or whatever his name is. Misplaced passes all
how
the place.
fucking bad was he yesterday?
He misplaced so many passes. I lost count.
I was laughing at him. I thought, fucking hell, he could play for us. But they're shocking. The best players, Eze, Saha, we're all missing.
Yes, and I like Edouard, by the way. Edouard.
Edouard.
Yeah, I like him, George. I think. Yeah. But the rest of them are ordinary.
Very ordinary.
Gallagher was an interesting player. It was all over the place. Yeah. But apart from those two, and by the way, George, I see all the player ratings, and generally speaking, these websites all give them lesser ratings than our players. Post game, go ahead, my friend.
All right. But the point is Benteke.
Yes.
Fuck's sake. That's his best option. And he's got those bunch of fucking journeymen playing better than our £500 million squad.
Correct.
At our own home ground. Arteta's record at home, 33% win rate at the Emirates.
Yes.
Can you fucking imagine that? Fucking hell, if we lost the game or didn't win it under Arsene Wenger, there was ructions. Fucking ructions. It didn't matter who came. Chelsea, Manchester United, City. If we
last year we lost. Last year we lost to City. We lost one game at home that last year, Wenger.
Yeah. No, 2 games.
One game.
2 games.
Or 2 games. I think it's 2 games.
I think we lost to United and Manchester City.
Right.
And the
In
United
his
game
worst year, George, you
in his
came to
worst
the
year.
you came to the Emirates and you didn't expect to get a goddamn result.
No, you didn't expect to win anyway. You know, you hear a lot about. Remember with Jose Mourinho, he said, "Oh, Arsene Wenger hasn't beaten Jose Mourinho in fucking however many years." There was also another stat that said Jose Mourinho didn't come to the Emirates and win in donkey's years, about 10 seasons or something. He
Yes.
never won at the Emirates. He
Yes.
might not have lost a lot, but he never fucking won. So the home crowd, even in Wenger's last year, watching the best season of points-wise that there's ever been. And now there's a 33% win rate, and people are saying, well, they've stopped saying it, the process. You know.
No, yeah, they said it's a new culture.
You can stick that culture
Up your
where the
ass.
sun don't shine because it ain't working.
Yes.
And Arteta coming on. I mean, yesterday he came on and basically blamed the players for not.
I didn't see his presser, George. I didn't see he did.
Yeah, I mean, and people tell you as well. And to be fair, you looked at the way we played against Tottenham in the first half hour, the first 15, 20 minutes against Palace, and I looked at that and I thought, this is all right. This is okay. And then I realised afterwards, you can't keep that up for 90 minutes.
Yeah.
They go fucking hell for leather for the first few minutes, first half hour, first 20 minutes, and look good because they're pressing all over the table, they're chasing everything, they're passing the ball quickly. If they can keep that up for 90 minutes, that'll be all right. But no team can keep that up for 90 minutes.
Right.
So it's an optical illusion. You see that at the beginning, you think, oh, this is progress. No, it's not progress. It's like the last 10 or 15 minutes when you're behind, all of a sudden you're throwing everything forward, caution to the wind, and people go, oh, why didn't we play like that all the way through the game?
Yes.
Because that's not how it works, because you don't.
George.
Last night we were so lucky that Crystal Palace decided to hold on and sit back and let us play. Whereas if they'd have carried on the way they were going, they would have probably scored more goals. But they made a mistake. They took your man Eduard.
Yeah. Off. Right.
And he was.
I kept Benteke on.
He should have been taking Benteke off, but they probably left Benteke on to clear headers coming into the box, which they accepted they were going to allow, and in the end, it cost them dearly.
And you know, George. Anyway, it was a loose ball. It was a corner. Then it came back to Pepe, and you know, in both cases, Pepe then get second chance at the ball, and there was the ball came back out.
Decent deliveries as well, you have to say.
Yeah.
For all the stick he got, I think he lost 17 out of 20. He failed in 17 out of 20 dribble attempts or something.
Some shit like that. He wasn't very. He didn't even help.
But
what's his name?
For him, we don't score at all.
Yeah.
But for him, we don't score at all.
No, yeah, correct. I mean, he was.
He put the 2 goals in that the goals came from.
Oh yeah, and
the first one, the first corner. Odegaard took the first corner and nearly went out for a throw-in at the other side.
Right.
Lucky Pepe's fucking quick because he managed to get to it just before it went into touch.
Right.
Which left him, it was such a bad ball into a space where no player of either team is ever going to be anywhere near a corner. There was loads of space for him to play a 1-2 with the Emperor.
Yes.
And that came off the most horrendous ball imaginable. It wasn't a bit of good play. It was result of the worst bit of play that you could possibly see. A corner so poor that it passed everybody and almost went into touch. And similarly, the second one, same thing. The corner went nowhere, got cleared, but falls to him again. And he managed to get a good one. Play a bit of ping pong. And,
Yes.
and they win. I mean, it was theft, really.
And
And,
Lacazette, George, to be honest, Lacazette.
just like it was theft at Brighton. I mean, that's the last 2 games we've come away with 2 points when we've been not battered, not absolutely leathered, but comprehensively outplayed. You know, so we all go hyperbole and go, oh, they battered us. Well, they didn't batter us. Brighton didn't batter us.
Right.
But they comprehensively outplayed us, both teams.
And tactically,
Brighton
yes.
and Crystal Palace, by the way.
200 and something million pound teams, George. 200 and something million pound teams versus 525 million pounds of players. George, I think we should not be remiss if we don't mention the fact that when Lacazette came on, he brought a lot of energy to the game. The problem with this energy thing, and I was, you can't sustain this. You can't sustain this for 90 minutes. And when you hear people running up their mouth on Twitter and YouTube telling you, oh, he needs to show a lot more energy, and you can't run around for 90 fucking minutes, you asshole. It just gets on my nerves.
As well as that, he did show a lot of energy and he did create some chances. But by that time, Crystal Palace were camped in their own box.
Yes.
And that's where a striker comes to life.
2 bags of 5, George. They had 2 bags of 5
to occupy the box. He was in the box. He didn't have to get into it. We didn't have to build up towards their box. They fell back and sat in it, allowing us the other 3/4 of the fucking pitch to do what we wanted. That was a mistake by them. Thankfully, that was a mistake for them. But it doesn't change anything. The underlying, all you have to do is look at the performances. That's 8 games in. We've played half an hour of good football against Spurs. And then for the next hour, Spurs were the better team. Even though we managed to get a good result, Spurs were better than us for the next hour. Crystal Palace, 10 or 15 minutes, we were better than them. For the next 60, 75 minutes, they were better than us. So that's in 8 games, we've played 45 minutes of what you would call good football. But the reason for that is it was breakneck football. He's put on a lot of attacking players and told them to go for it from the first whistle. And that's unsustainable. That's not a system that can work over the course of a season or even at 90 minutes.
Exactly.
So we're in deep shit, Shotter. We're in deep shit.
But George, Aston Villa is coming up. But the problem here, George, is that teams know we can be gotten at. I'm sure, despite all the brave faces, the players know at heart that they're not playing well, that they can be gotten at. Look at poor Ramsdale. I rate Ramsdale, George. I've forgotten Martinez because of him. But there's so much a keeper can do. I remember when he was at Sheffield, it wasn't that he was a bad keeper, but when you're pouring pressure on a young fellow, he'll be going to pick up the ball out of the back of the net more often than not. And yesterday, Edward came down on him and blasted, and he reacted. It was a very hard shot, I admit. But you would have expected him, George, to at least get a hand to that, don't you think? I mean, I just think he's under too much pressure.
Well,
frankly.
I don't think. I think it's harsh to say he should have saved that. It was
it's
a good shot. It moved in the air. He saw it late. There was people between him and the ball. He'll have seen it late, and I think it was just a good goal. I don't blame him for it. There's a lot of players that are more to blame than him, like Lakongo giving it away.
Yes,
Parky giving it. You know. 2 goals. That's 2 goals in 1 game given away from mistakes from the midfield, right?
The central midfielders.
And we hear about Granit Xhaka making all these mistakes leading to goals. Like 6 of them. 6 of them
in 4 years.
5 years.
5 years. 4 or 5 years. Right? Yes.
Last night there were 2 in 1 game. How many is that going to be over a 4 or 5 year fucking period? You know,
And George,
Exactly.
I mean, Granit Xhaka is not only that, he's directing the game. He is um mentoring the players on the field. He is making the right passes. For fucking hell, George! All of this oohing and eyeing of a party, and all of those shots were flying wide. And and people said I couldn't get a replay, but he committed a penalty offense in the box. And thank heavens, Arteta hauled him off in the towards the end and put on Martinelli. He was a liar. And I'm not gonna say that, but he is not a 42 million pound player. Let me just leave it at that. And I also want to anyway, leave it at that. Go ahead, George.
No, true. We saw exactly what we've got in midfield without Granit Xhaka. But without him till after Christmas.
Yeah. Well, we have Villa coming up, George. We're gonna wrap it up here now. We have Villa coming up. And they lost. They were up 2-0 the other day against Leicester, George. And they conceded 3. I think it's
No, it wasn't Leicester. It was
Wolves. Wolves. Yes, Wolves. They're mid-table rivals. By the way, we are firmly ensconced in mid-table, George, at 12. God. George, and this is the problem. Teams know that we can be gotten at. Aston Villa is penciling this in, they're coming there, that they can get a result. I'm not saying they're bound to. What are your thoughts on that? We're going to do this Friday morning, but don't you agree with me?
Yeah, I said last time I was on that from the next 4 games, we should beat. There's one team we should beat.
Watford. You said Watford.
Watford we should beat. Mm-hmm. But the other 3 games are toss-ups. I think Villa are slight favourites to beat us, even though they lost badly.
They conceded 3 in the second
half.
half.
Can you imagine us scoring 3 goals in the last 10 minutes?
No. I didn't think we could score more than 1, George, and I'm serious. And that is our average.
We're 8 games in now, and we've scored
12.
No, we scored 7,
George. I'm sorry, 12 again. 7. Yes. I'm looking on there.
12.
Yes.
This is not a fault. We're 12th in the league. This is not a false position. This is what. In fact, I looked at it, and I know people will say I'm a miserable, moaning old twat, which I am. Fair enough, I am.
And you have company here.
But I've looked at it, and realistically, on performances, we should only have 6 points and be sat in 17th place. If that's where we were sitting, we could not look around and say we deserve better, we've been unlucky. We beat Norwich, we were slightly better than Norwich, 3 points. We beat Spurs, we were slightly better than Spurs. It looked like we were a lot better because of the first half hour, but we were better than them, 3 points. That's 6 points. In every other game, we've been second.
What about Burnley? You remember how they hammered us? You remember how many?
They didn't hammer us, they didn't batter us, but they were better than us.
Right.
They created more than us, they had more chances. We were very lucky to beat Burnley. So if we hadn't won that, that would have been the right result. Brighton should have won. Crystal Palace should have won. City definitely should have won. Yeah. Chelsea clearly should have won. And Brentford. They just ran all over us. So 6 points is what we should have, and we should be sitting in 17th place. We cannot.
By the way, George, Brentford is not a one-off. I saw them play Chelsea, and they were good for the money.
You say that, but I watched that game in the first half. Chelsea completely controlled the game. They went 1-up. They hardly had to break a sweat. And what happened was, in the last 20 minutes, exactly what I've said, Brentford just went, come on, like throwing everything at them. And Chelsea had to hang on.
Yeah.
And, but Brentford can't play like that for 90 minutes.
But, George...
The reason they were 1-0 behind was because Chelsea had controlled the game and outplayed them for the first 60 minutes.
Right. But, George, the whole point, and you're making the point that being in control of the game is important, and that is what we lack. We don't have control of the game for you never have control for the 90 minutes. But you would think that an Arsenal team could
We
control
could
a
have it for 5.
game. Okay, George, let's leave it at that. George, I would like to end on a note. I anticipate a rising crescendo of Arteta out.
Oh.
Rising crescendo. Just the problems are deeper than that, George. I think that we spent the first 20 minutes talking about that. Probably spent 10 minutes on the game yesterday. But if let's provide our listeners, the few that listen to us, we will, if we don't take a different approach, that the current course we are on, where we spend money like a drunken sailor, we buy ordinary players and hope that we will be competing. George, people need to understand, with all the big money in the league, we won't be competing for the title for a very long time. We have to rebuild this team to be able to get into top 6 or top 4. Arteta in and out. If we don't have that strategy, we will be on a suicidal path. Keep going. Perhaps you want to conclude but with some comments on that.
Yeah, but the answer isn't easy. If it was easy, every club would be in the top 4.
Exactly.
And we're par for us going forward. We'll be 6th, but not 12th, not 17th.
Correct.
And that's where we are. And you can blame everybody. You can blame Edu. You can blame Stan Kroenke. You can blame the weatherman. You can blame the referees. But for me, the heart of the problem is Mikel Arteta. Edu got the players that Arteta wanted, allegedly.
This is what they say.
He did his job. He's not training them. He's not fucking coaching them. We're playing badly. And the main reason, I think if you bring a good coach in, you immediately improve the team and our prospects of finishing considerably higher up the league. We're not going to get top 6. We're not going to get top 4, no matter who comes in, if anybody came in this season. But we would move up. We'd probably get 7th, 8th, 9th. But at current rate, we're going to struggle to finish in the top half. And there is no signs of improvement. And there's no easy fix. You can't say we'll replace Edu, or we're trying to get new scouts, we'll scout better. Every team's trying to do that. Every team's trying to scout better. You can't ask Kroenke to give us any more money. It's already given more to spend than everybody else in the fucking league in the last year. So, for me, the heart of the problem is Mikel Arteta at the moment. Is he a product of other difficulties at the club? Have we gone for Mikel Arteta because we're not ambitious enough to get a better manager, or we can't find a better manager, or we can't persuade a better manager to come? Possibly. But the fact is, he's the easiest thing to fix. You could get rid of him and bring a better manager in, and those players. And you just said I'm buying average players. We've not really bought average players. We've bought good players. We've bought players that are better than every player in the Brentford team, every player in the Brighton team, every player in the Crystal Palace team. These players that we've brought in are better than them. They couldn't afford them. They couldn't keep them if they played for them. Other clubs would want their players if our players that we've bought played for them. So
George, be warned. I'm going to give you a warning. The fact that we paid big prices for them don't necessarily make them a good players. I get your point, but I thought, you know who I think were overpriced and they're not good, really good players. You know my point. I'm not going to belabor that.
I know what you're talking about.
Yes, and that is a mistake. I think a lot of us are
doesn't make them bad players.
Well, that's right. Well, George, I think yes, we're going to replace Arteta. The crescendo is going to rise. He has to go. But the problems or the issues are deeper than that, George. I think we all, this is a point I hope I have made. I know nobody is listening anyway. Thank you, George. Let's end
See
it
you
here.
later.
Yeah,
Bye,
bye.
everybody.
Bye.